Hey guys, Dark Angel here. So I'm going to read to you the actual standing definition because a lot of you seem to think that you know what the definition of a motor vehicle is. And a lot of you have your opinions as to what you believe it is. So, in the event that you don't know, this right here, that 18 USC 31 is the definitions. Okay. So I'm going to read to you right there. Motor vehicle. That way you know I'm not jazzing it up. It's legit law. It's the real deal Holyfield. 18 USC 31A6. Motor vehicle. And what I'm reading to you is the way it's still written to this very day. So you can't dispute it. You can say what you want to say, but I'm getting ready to show you a couple of things as to why the right to travel without a license, registration, and all that is perfectly legal and has been legal ever since. I'm going to show you why, because some of y'all seem to fail to understand how is it legal? It can't be legal. The law says this. No, the law does not say that. I'm going to show you what the law actually says. The law says this. This is what the definition to motor vehicle says. The term motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways in the transportation of passengers and property or cargo. Now let me go back because I want to make sure that you guys caught this part of what it says. The term motor vehicle means every description. You can go down to 18 USC 2311 and it reads this: includes road vehicles such as automobiles, vans, motorcycles, and trucks, as well as off-road vehicles such as self-propelled construction and farming equipment. Now, go back to the first part of that 18 USC 6. What does it say again? The term motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance. 18 USC 2311 is all the descriptions that they're referring to. Used for commercial purposes on the highways in the transportation of passengers and property or cargo. So if you got a car, an automobile, and you're using it as a cab, you are operating in that of a commercial capacity. Sorry, it's facts. It's true. It says it right there in the law. So here's why I'm going to give you a prime example of why the right to travel is perfectly legal, and it always has been. So in the RCW 4604-320 here in Washington, the definition of motor vehicle is: motor vehicle means a vehicle that is self-propelled or a vehicle that is propelled by electric power. Now that's how the definition, of motor vehicle is found here in Washington, the state of Washington. Okay, up here in the state of Washington, I should say. So now I'm going to show you how. Let's say, for instance, I was to get pulled over, which I have. And exactly what I'm telling you is how I beat my case. So my ticket. You can go in my videos and you can see it dismissed in the best interest of justice. Okay. So that video's there in the shorts. Go check it out. But this is how I beat it. So I don't know if any of you ever heard of what the supremacy clause is. Article 6, paragraph 2 of the United States Constitution supremacy clause states that, okay, the federal constitution and the federal law generally take precedence over state laws and even state constitutions. Basically, what that means is this. If a state statute or a state law is in conflict, okay, with the federal constitution, the supremacy clause gives the federal constitution and federal statutes, okay, precedence over them. So when you go to do your appeal, okay, first thing you're going to argue is your state statute for the definition of a motor vehicle. Okay? Because 9 times out of 10, the definition that the state has rendered for motor vehicle does not match what the feds have rendered as being law. Okay? The USC's 18 USC 31(6), that's the law. That's the law. It all depends on how you do your appeal is what matters. Now you're gonna get all these haters on here and they're gonna try to dispute the facts. And you're welcome to. It's all good. You can. However, you can't really, because that's the law. That is the law. I have so many people, I had so many new people and new trolls tell me that no state has actually, all states have defined what a motor vehicle is, and they all pretty much have defined it as the same. True, they have. It's not in compliance with the federal statute, and that's the one that matters. So you might get arrested at a stop for traveling in your automobile. Okay, you might, but where you're going to win is on the appeal, because you challenged the statute, the constitutionality of that statute. It's void. Period. It's void. And you don't even have to ask for it to be voided for vagueness, because it's not vague. It's void. It's null and void. It doesn't match with what the federal constitution says, with the federal law, with the federal statutes and federal state constitution says. Now, here's the thing about the supremacy clause. Okay, if the state statutes and state laws are in conflict with the federal constitution and the federal laws, okay, federal takes precedence over state every day, all day. Ain't no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Have to prove that it is, and you don't even have to go through and prove much on that aspect, because of the simple fact is, you take your state statute in there, show them the definition of what they define motor vehicle as, compare that to USC 1831(6) A6. Guess one takes precedence. Guess which one takes precedence pursuant to that of the supremacy clause? Now, you'd say, well, the state has an interest. Yep, they do. They have an interest in the fact that you don't have a contract with them, and they're trying to get you to contract. That's what they want you to do. No state can force you into a contract. I had somebody actually tell me, yeah, they can. Yeah, they can. No, they can't. No, they can't. because I'm going to show you something. This right here, I don't know if you can see that or not. Herzog versus Herzog. Okay. It's an old Supreme Court case. Goes all the way back to 1857. It's never been superseded, never been overturned. One of the oldest standing Supreme Court cases there is. This is what it says about contracts. For those of you that did not know, this is actually what it says about contracts. It says, constructive contracts are fictions of law adopted for the purpose of enforcing legal duties by actions ex contractu where no proper contract exists, express or implied. Okay? Then, and you can find that at, what is that, 3? At 3 in the case. And then at 4 it says, implied contracts arise under circumstances which, according to the ordinary course of dealing and the common understanding of men, show a mutual intention to contract. Meaning this. This is what that means. So if I'm traveling in a non-commercial intercourse, there is no enforceable contract with the state of state without one's consent. One's consent is given by silence, by compliance with without claim of right, and complying when asked for a driver's license and handing it out the window, thereby giving tacit agreement of engaging in commercial intercourse. Meaning this, what that just meant, that was actually the answer to the common understanding of men show a mutual intention to contract. Meaning this, if an officer walks up to you, up to your car, when he walks up to your car and asks you for your driver's license, you just consented to that contract. A license is a contract, people. Get over yourselves in thinking that it's not. It is a contract. Period. And as it says, express contracts are where the terms of an agreement are openly uttered and avowed at the time of the engagement is entered into. Okay? So, constructive contracts, where they don't go into all the explanation as to how the contract works and what it does, etc., etc., it's fictions of law. And if you know what the word fiction means, that should tell you all you need to know. So, basically what they're saying is you give consent when you just be silent. If you don't invoke your right, okay, just because you're silent doesn't mean that that's invoking your right. Okay, you have to actually invoke your right, okay, in order for it to work, in order for it to be legal, binding. Once you hand that license out that window to the officer, you just came in compliance with that contract. You consented. Okay? When you invoke your rights and you do not give him that license, you're not consenting to that contract. It's law. It's fact. It's all fact. It's not a delusion. It's not an opinion. It's not something that, you know, all you haters, traitors, trolls, and bootlickers think are not doable. I just laid out the facts for you of how motor vehicle, pursuant to the federal code, and how the supremacy clause supersedes, gives the feds, you know, the power to supersede anything the state does, you know. And thing is You don't even have to go into a long drawn out appeal. There's certain ways that you can address the appeal process. You could stop it right in its tracks by just challenging jurisdiction right off the rip. If you want to, you can do that, you know, and that'll throw away all that. But let's say you forget, okay, at the time, and you remember this, you know, and you remember this, and you remember about the supremacy clause. Article 6, Paragraph 2 of the United States Constitution, Supremacy Clause. Federal Constitution and federal law generally take precedence over state laws and even state constitutions. Don't get no better than that. Don't get no clearer than that. So if a state statute and its definition of motor vehicle doesn't match that of the federal motor vehicle statute, guess what? State statute takes precedence over it. Gonna win every time. Why you think everybody that's going in there now, outside of Port versus I think it was Port versus Washington, or Port versus, I can't think of the name of the town out there where she was at. Anyway, Port versus Spokane. The only reason why she lost her case on the right to travel is because she gave the state authority, some authority, and she took and named the license a different name. She gave the license a different name. She said that the state should be able to have the authority to issue a certificate of compliance. Okay. Bonehead move on your part, Miss Port, because no, state had no authority. Had no authority, sorry. Nowhere in the state's regulations, okay, under the commerce clause, does it say in there that the state was given the authority as well as the police power to regulate private travel in a personal private automobile. Nowhere in there. And for those of you that don't know, commerce means to do business or trade. Transportation, okay, also means to do business or trade. It's commercial. It's all commercial. Look them up. Look the words up under the federal regulations. That's where you're going to find it. Look up the word transportation. Look what it tells you under the federal codes. Look up the word commerce. Now, here's the thing about commerce. You can look the word commerce up in a regular standard Webster's dictionary, and it's going to give you the exact same definition that the federal statutes is going to give you. It's going to give you the exact same definition that Black's Law Dictionary is going to give you. So it doesn't matter which one of those you use, formal or informal, legal or formal, I should say. Definition of commerce, the bottom line is it means to do business or trade. Traffic means to do business. It doesn't mean the flow of automobiles or trucks going down the road. It doesn't mean that. Traffic means to do business. Look it up. You don't have to take my word for it. Look it up. You haters, traders, and trolls and bootlickers want to get on here and make comments, but none of you are willing to put in the work to actually prove that's what's being said is wrong. Now, I had a couple of people on here, they want to cite all these state cases and state Supreme Court cases, thinking that those state cases and those state Supreme Court cases affect the entire United States. Nope, they don't. Sorry, they don't. And they're unconstitutional. If you read in I don't think I actually printed that. I don't think I actually printed that case out, and I don't even remember what the name of it was. But in one of the cases I was reading today when I was doing some research, it was actually interesting to find that even the judges admitted that the state was following unconstitutional statutes. 6 judges admitted to that. I don't remember what case it was, but I'm going to look it up and go back in my search history and see which one of those cases it was that I was reading. But in one of those cases, it mentioned that, and I was like, what? But we already know that a lot of states operate under unconstitutional statutes. You just have to know whether or not it's unconstitutional. There's that. So, the true definition of a motor vehicle, pursuant to that of 18 USC 31:6, is, I'm going to read it again for all of you that don't know. The term motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways in the transportation of passengers and property or cargo. Now, let's go and look at the definition, because I forgot to actually add this part on there. What does used for commercial purposes mean? Oh, well, 18 USC 31 section 10 actually defines what used for commercial purposes means. The term used for commercial purposes means the carriage of persons or property for any fare, fee, rate, charge, or other consideration, or directly or indirectly in connection with any business or other undertaking intended for, listen to it, here it is, punchline, profit. Right there. Last word. Profit. Right there, guys. See that? Yeah, there it is. Right there. You can't dispute the facts. Can't dispute the facts. Yeah, I don't know if you can actually see that or not. There it goes. Used for commercial purposes. And then there's your motor vehicle. And then you also got to go, because you got to keep in mind, in the definition of motor vehicle, it says means every description of carriage or other contrivance. Okay, so you have to go down to section 18 USC 2311, get your descriptions. Road vehicles such as automobiles, vans, motorcycles, trucks, as well as off-road vehicles such as self-propelled construction and farming equipment. That's the other description of vehicles, of motor vehicles being utilized in that of a commercial capacity. Just saying. That's what it means. Nowhere in there does it say anything about a personal private automobile. Nowhere in any of the laws that has ever been constructed has a statute and or a law been passed giving the state authority to regulate personal private automobiles. The only automobiles that they can regulate are automobiles operating in that of a commercial capacity. Taxi cab, Ubers, Lyft, food deliveries, florist people, delivery vans, UPS, mail, police cars. All those are commercial capacities. Fire trucks, ambulances, tow trucks, all commercial capacity. If you decide to voluntarily surrender your automobile and register it with the DMV and turn it into a motor vehicle, which it which it would actually be once you get your title back, because your title says motor vehicle on it. If I'm not mistaken, I do believe it says certificate of motor vehicle. Now, I just gave you the true definition of a motor vehicle, so you can sit there and dispute and say whatever it is you want about a motor vehicle. Okay? A motor vehicle is a vehicle used for commercial capacity. Forget what you ever been told about the state. The state don't matter. Okay? What the state says doesn't matter. And what the state says has never mattered. But what you need to understand is you need to educate the police, because the police are wasting their time pulling people over, writing them tickets that in the long run is just going to get them sued, and cause them turmoil and grief. So maybe it's time for the people to start standing up and start trying to educate the police. You see an officer standing on the side of the road, you gather this information up. Gather this information that I've read to you here, and other information. And not no bullshit. Stick to the law. Okay? The USCs, you can't go wrong. You're not going to go wrong. They don't have no choice but to come in compliance with the USCs. And granted, you are going to have those tyrants that's going to completely ignore it, because state law is the law, and we're going to take you in. Okay, I'm going to get you on the appeal, and then I'm going to sue you. Stand up and be accountable, though, officer, when you get sued. But to all my haters, traitors, and trolls, and for all those of you that think, bootlickers, that think you know the law, if you find a law defining motor vehicle that supersedes 18 USC 31:6, post it. I don't want to hear your opinions. Post the law. Let me see what you're talking about. Especially you, Fiddletown 2002. I don't even know how you got up on here talking about what you be talking about. No one even understands what you be talking about. And you too, Black Prince. We all laughing at you two. You two are characters for real, because you two have no idea what you're talking about. None. I just laid the law out. Oh, and then let's not even talk about the whole act rule that the courts have to use in applying the supremacy clause, Article 6, paragraph 2, into determining whether or not the state statute is unconstitutional, which it is. And the interesting part about that is the whole act rule is what's used to determine all statutes, state statutes, anywhere across the United States, called legal maxima. Check it out. Go look it up. You'll see. I actually did a video on that law. I read the law to you. I even did a video on the law that gave the state the authority to regulate, and the only authority it was ever given to regulate was its business, commerce. Hence the reason why the Commerce Clause is in the Constitution. But none of y'all seem to understand that. The state was never given the power to regulate personal private travel. The state was never given the authority to tell a traveler how they can and can't travel. There is not one case law that has ever been established that says a traveler cannot travel in his own personal private automobile. There's not one case law. Not one. And then you guys want to go and talk about, oh, well, Hendricks versus Maryland. There we go with that bull crap again. Hendricks versus Maryland had nothing to do with mandatory license and registrations. Okay. The case was about commerce, period. And it was about the fees, that the fees would not affect the operation of commerce, of you operating in commerce. You pay a fee to get a license, you pay a fee to get a registration. Mandatory fees on purchase of a license and registration of your automobile or your truck or whatever it was you was using in commerce to do business or trade. Okay? Get it right, people. If you're gonna talk about that case, at least know what the case is about. Okay? Had nothing to do with mandatory license and mandatory registrations. It was about fees attached to applying for a license or a registration. Now, whether or not Mr. Hendricks was utilizing his car, his own personal car, for business or not, that was never established in the case. Okay? However, because of the fact that the judges always converted to commerce within the case, that's what gave the case a commerce standing. Why do you think the courts don't utilize that case against travelers? There's a reason behind that. They can't. Has nothing to do with the right to travel without a registration or license or plates. I'm not contracting with no state. I don't have to. You can't force me to. You can't make me. Contracts are fictitious. They're fictions. Fictions of law. And that's been determined all the way back in 1857 when that case was decided. Herzog, Hertzog, 29 Pennsylvania, 465, 1857. Supreme Court of Pennsylvania. But, I mean, it's one of the cases that cites contract law, what contract law is. So that's the only reason why I revert to that case, because it actually gives you one of the best descriptions of what contracts are. Now, there might be some better, and that's okay, but on the same strength, contracts are contracts regardless. Everybody has a different variation of what a contract is, and you have direct, indirect, etc., etc. But we ain't gonna get off into all that because I've already made this a little bit too long, a little longer than what I wanted to. But now you know what a motor vehicle is and how I beat it and got my case dismissed in the best interest of justice. The best interest of justice. The best interest of justice. Go look at that short. My short. Show you the charges, the ticket, and the dismissal. All in the court's minute orders. Well, that's about all I got for y'all tonight. Dark Angel, deuces.